Okay, welcome to the first video for WestWorld Elevated Scrutiny subreddit. Season 3 and the Divergence is pretty dense in details at times, so I figured I'd take some time to just talk about some of this material. And this linear timeline that we're looking at is a good opportunity to hopefully promote some discussion about these divergence ideas. You know, what ideas make sense and what ideas need to be improved. So yeah, this is a 100-year timeline coming from basically the Solomon 7 prediction GUI that we see in episode 8. I just want to start, there's a lot of material here, but I just want to start with describing the basics. What do the rows mean? What are the columns? What are the colors? Where does this come from? Why do we even need to make a timeline? Don't we already know the timeline? And a couple of simple questions about ages. How old do we think Ford is? How old do we think Serac is? Certainly at one point it would be good to go through each section one by one, talk about the divergences, but in just a short video I think we can just cover the basics and get an understanding for these colors and what's going on with these parallel worlds. So let's start with the rows. We have 4 parallel worlds, starting with the old world representing Ford's world, the world in which he grew up. So from 2015 to roughly 2068. So around the time of 2055, by the time Ford is 40, he's built the new world. Right. So in the first row, we have this event of 2025. Right. This is the mushroom cloud event with Paris being nuked. So in the season 3 trailer, we're told that there's a nuclear divergence in 2025 in Paris, right? And then in genre, where we see in Serac's memories, Serac and his brother standing in the wheat field watching the mushroom cloud, right? So we would think, right, that this is 2025. But this brings us to the first reason why, we think that we should create a new timeline, because the timeline we're being told doesn't quite fit. If Serac was around 10 years old when he saw that mushroom cloud in 2025, and if then we know season 3 is taking place in 2058, that makes Serac 43 years old by the end of season 3. Right? This doesn't fit with what we see. In some scenes, Serac has silver hair. Certainly is a knowledgeable guy. He's older than 40. I would say Liam is closer to 40 than Serac. So there's a problem here. There's a contradiction, and we have to rethink this timeline. So the first way to fix it is to look at this very first event, right, which is the mushroom cloud. Now, Serac and his brother are dressed similarly to Ford and his brother, as we see them, recreated in WestWorld season 1. So that's the first assumption that's natural to make, is that it was actually Ford and his brother who watched the mushroom cloud in 2025. Maybe instead of Paris, it was London that was bombed, perhaps, which would make sense with these divergence coordinates being in Hawaii. Ford and his family moved to the New World, in other words, the United States, to get away from the radiation. Okay, so we see Ford being born around 2015. 2025 watches the mushroom cloud, and then over the course of his life, he recreates the new world around 40 years old, and then by the end of, by the time of his death, it's 2098, which makes Ford, 80, born in 2015, yeah, so 83 when he's murdered, which makes sense with what we see. And then for Serac's age, okay, so we have Serac being reborn in 2058. The first time we see Serac as an adult was around the time he creates Solomon. So, okay, so if this is him around that time, then he's lived for 40 years. So, let's say Serac is around the same age as William. a cleaner version of William. He's around 60 years old, let's say. So, yeah, so Serac would be 20, when he was recreated here, putting him at 60. So that fixes this problem, roughly speaking. Okay, well, probably jumping ahead a little bit. Let's get back to the columns, which is the colors, right? So to see where the colors come from, we need to look at this Solomon 7 GUI. In fact, the first two rows and the colors both came from looking at this divergence circle. Right, this is from episode 8. Serac shows this to Caleb. When Caleb sees it, we see the events starting with 5 pop up in a clockwise fashion. This one, these two don't have any coordinates associated with them. And then this next, going in a clockwise order up to this last end of human civilization. Right. So, but then when we go in and we investigate the focal points, right, and we see that they are matching to the Serac Memories timeline. Now, this circle gives us explicitly the amount of years that pass between each event. So the years passing, for example, like from here 23 years to here 13 is 10 years. That's the 10 years that Dempsey was happy to pass the checks. Allows us to see that this is when they took over the stock market, right? And this is around the time 10 years later when Dempsey's murdered, right? Okay, so as far as coordinates go, the two big ones are number 3 and number 5. Number 3 here, we look at the coordinates, they lie outside of Step 1 Estates Recovery Center, and nearby there's remarkably a picture, or not a picture, but Serac's face is there on Google Maps, grown into an agricultural circle. So, the location together with that scar on the landscape pretty clearly are mapping this event to this time when Serac discovered gene editing, right? But, according to our hypothesis of Serac's age, right, it was actually Ford discovering gene editing in this event, right? Okay, now directly across the circle from it, in sort of exactly a mirrored event, so this would also be pink. That's why I have it as pink here. Pink representing gene editing. A strawberry milkshake was spilled at these coordinates right across from or nearby an LAPD headquarters. We know after Caleb was in the diner, spilled the milkshake, the police showed up, right? So that's, about 30 years before current time, assuming Caleb's around 40 years old, because he would have been 10 when the milkshake was spilled. Right. Okay, so from number 1 with the mushroom cloud, moving through to the stock market, the gene editing, right? These unknown events. So all this portion is Ford's life, right? And then this quarter of the circle here, this is basically when WestWorld began, just after the milkshake. This is season 1, season 2, season 3, right in here. Right. Okay, so that's this. Now it's hard to see the colors from here, so now we'll look at this one. This was the first attempt to decode the Solomon 7, and you see how these events are mirroring each other. So that's how these segregated colors come into it, because we see, like, this event, for example, or like this one would be the mushroom cloud, and directly across on the other side of the circle, a mirrored event of WestWorld being created, like those first generation hosts where Ford created the conditions, around the time that he was born. Right, just one example, or the two milkshakes here. So that's, yellow representing the wheat, green money, pink the milkshake. This is bloodshed and murder, like this is season 1, with all the bloodshed. And then Journey into Night, of course, right, Ford, the season 2 journey. Right. Okay, and then we look at the wheel for season 3 with these colors in mind. Now we're going clockwise, instead. Right, so time, I guess, can flow in both directions, depending on the situation. And yeah, we have these 5 colors again, and these mirrored events. Right, okay. So back to the timeline, now we have an understanding, right, of the columns are the different worlds, the paralleling timelines, the rows, sorry. The columns are the colors and the mirrored events. Right. So I think that's mostly everything that I wanted to discuss here. There's a complicated overlap here, 2068, 2055, right, where there's has to be a year reset because, you know, we're told that it's 2058 currently. So this region's a little complicated with the overlap. The other 2 rows don't overlap like that. But so far, I don't have information to say exactly when that year reset happened. Right, so just to finish off, let's describe the mirrored events. We have the mushroom cloud, the creation of the first gen hosts. Note that these times, right, like this is 2 years, this is a lot more than 2 years, 27 years. So it's more so that, you know, the time isn't matching linearly. It's more so the nature of these events that match them to each other. Okay, so then we have the stock market control, and we have the creation of Escalante. Right, two worlds being created. We have the Caleb milkshake, and we have the Engerond and Arnold being born, like the rebirth milkshakes of gene editing. And then over here we have a murder, right, and the start of WestWorld, when William first meets Dolores, right? So more murder to come there as well. And then these 2 mirrored events, Ford's death, right, and Arnold's death, mirroring each other there. Okay, thanks a lot for listening and for following. I'll see you on Reddit. Peace.